Hello students, welcome to SmartKidz tutorials. Starting from where we left off, we finished with coronavirus in the previous video, and now we go to trypanosoma. So we see what is trypanosoma. So it's type of a protozoan organism similar to what causes malaria, but in this case it causes sleeping sickness as we know it. And the organism is a saucer-shaped substance. Okay, we and it's present in a red blood cell. If you see over here, this is kind of what shows you that if you notice over here, this is a trypanosoma, and here it shows you the life cycle of a trypanosoma and how it affects a human. So it is transmitted via a particular type of fly known as tsetse fly. Okay, and usually find in Africa, so that's why it's also called as African sleeping sickness. It bites the human, and thereafter the life cycle of this fly is a good part of that life cycle is completed within the human being in which has been bitten by that particular fly. The fly acts as a vector, as in a carrier of those trypanosomas, and when it bites it, it injects this trypanosomas into human, and then you see development of the fly happens within the human system, and finally what happens is the migration of these trypanosomes happens to the brain, where it affects the brain, and this is how it looks like when seen under a microscope. Here it is purple in color because it's stained with a particular stain that differentiated from the background medium. You can see the nucleus over here and see it is saucer shaped, and in the background you can see RBC cells as well. So it lies close to the RBC cells, and RBC cells are known to provide oxygen to the tissues and organs of our system. Next we have Staphylococcus bacteria. Now this Staphylococcus bacteria is usually present on our skin, and hence present in large amounts it can cause something called as acne. I will show you this is an electron microscope picture of or a capture of Staphylococcus, how it looks under a microscope. You see these are known as colonies. They come together to form colonies, and here if you look, this is what acne looks like. This is at least a minor case of acne, otherwise your entire face gets covered with this uh, rashes that you can see on this person's face. Your face gets covered with it. This is caused by the Staphylococcus bacteria. Then you have the adult roundworm. I'll show you how the you may have heard about worms present within our body. Sorry, and that is why we have even a national deworming day, where we are given deworming tablets to get these worms out from our system. Ascaris lumbricoides is its scientific name, and these are worms present within our body, and known as adult roundworms, found in the small intestine, and particularly found even in dogs. That's why they are also given deworming tablets at least once in a year. Next is Leishmania, okay, caused by a protozoa, causes I mean Leishmania. The protozoan causes Kala-Azar, and it is oval shaped, and each one has one whip-like structure that is called as the flagella, allows it to move. Here you see the transmission of Leishmania. Okay, it's an infectious disease, so it leads to infection from uh, one person to another, with a sand fly being a carrier or a vector. It can be also caused by transfusion, by using infected needles, and also from mother to baby. Coming to antibiotics. Okay, now what are antibiotics? Antibiotics are basically medicines which help to treat against bacterial infections only. Okay, for a common cold we don't take antibiotics. We take antibiotics mainly against bacteria. Okay, so whenever we have a bacterial infection, the doctor will prescribe antibiotics. But antibiotics, you need to be careful in taking antibiotics because they can also have side effects, and prolonged use of antibiotics can also render the antibiotic useless because the bacteria then gets used to it. So antibiotics work by blocking various biochemical pathways that are important for the growth and development of the bacteria. Hence, they are effective against them. So examples of antibiotics include penicillin, tetracycline. These antibiotics work in different ways, and some 4 ways that are shown over here. They may either destroy their cell wall, which is the outer layer. They could even lead to destruction of their protein synthesis, or even inhibit their DNA replication or their chromosomal DNA, or even destroy their capsule, that is the outer protein covering over here. Okay, so it works in different ways. Ways in which it can inhibit or stop the growth of bacteria from growing and spreading within our body. So each bacteria has got a cell wall to protect themselves, and antibiotic like penicillin will block that bacterial process that builds that cell wall. If there is no cell wall, the bacteria will die off. Okay, that's how the penicillin works. So remember, but antibiotics work only against bacteria and not against the viruses. Means of spread of infectious diseases. Now, diseases are spread via air. It can be airborne, it can be waterborne, it can be via food, through physical contact or sexual contact as well. Okay, and through air we know by sneezing or coughing. Whenever we sneeze or cough, okay, the the microbes get released into the atmosphere, and if we are close by, let's say the person who has sneezed or coughed has not held his hand against his mouth, then what will happen? The released bacteria are free to move to the next possible host. And if you happen to be close by to such a person who has an infection and has sneezed or coughed, chances are that you may also be infected with the same infection that that person has got. This type of transmission or spread of the disease is known as airborne. Okay, because it is spread via the air. Examples of that include a common cold, tuberculosis, pneumonia. You may have noticed this even in your classes when one of your friends has got a cold. he tends to sneeze or cough. He or she tends to sneeze or cough, and chances are after a few days you would do the same, or some of your other friends may do the same. That's because it is highly infectious, and it is spread via air, and you can't see it spread. That is the important part. Then the other means by which it can spread is through water. Sharing of infectious water, or that means, let's say, um, somebody who's sick with some infectious disease, that person drinks water, and you happen to share the same water, okay? Or, like, let's say, through water, like, which is not been boiled or filtered, okay? Chances are that the bacteria that may be present within it may cause certain disease within you, okay? So care should be taken while drinking water as well, making sure that various hygienic practices are maintained. We boil water every time before we drink, okay? And also filter the water from unnecessary dirt and so forth, because along with dirt comes even the germs that can cause infection, make us sick, okay? Examples of spread of infection through water includes cholera, amoeba. Water and food transmission is almost the same, okay? And when we boil food also, we need to make sure we boil them correctly. We bring vegetables or fruits, we should wash them thoroughly, okay? Because there are not just germs, but there are also chemicals that can make us sick. There are certain vectors that lead to spread of infectious disease, and I had mentioned about malaria. Malaria is caused by an Anopheles mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito. Okay, the female Anopheles mosquitoes. What happens is they are interested in not making us sick, but they are interested in our blood. So when they do that, they possess a protozoa known as Plasmodium, and this Plasmodium gets injected into our blood while they are drawing blood from our body, as a result of which the plasmodium completes its life cycle within the human body, and we then experience something called as malaria. We get fever and chills, and if we do not take immediate action against the symptoms shown by malaria, death could also be caused. But nowadays, mostly with improvement in clinical healthcare, deaths due to malaria have reduced, at least in most of the developing and developed countries. Developed countries usually will not have malaria. Developing countries show malaria, but there are still deaths in countries which are underdeveloped, particularly in Africa and so forth. Okay, Asia, it has reduced, but it is still there, but improved to a great extent. Deaths from malaria have reduced, but still improvement is required. There are other forms similar to malaria, that is dengue and yellow fever. Okay, so similar profile to malaria. Slightly, they differ slightly, and the deadliness, as in ability to kill a person, varies from one disease to another. And dengue also is known to have caused a number of deaths, and mostly these are from areas which are not very well, where the hygiene is not very well practiced, the surroundings are not clean, and lack of awareness with respect to the disease, as to some merely pass it off as normal fever, okay, unaware of the fact that they have been bitten by a particular mosquito causing them a particular disease. Through sexual contact. Through sexual contact, we have the most notorious one is HIV, which causes AIDS. Okay, and in this case, the immune system of an individual is completely destroyed to such an extent that even a minor common cold can even kill the person. For a person who is suffering from a full-blown uh, case of HIV. Okay, HIV stands for human immune deficiency virus, causing deficiency of the immune system. The defense system of our body collapses, as a result of which anything can affect and even kill us. That is what happens with people who suffer from AIDS. So those who suffer from AIDS don't die instantly. They do take a long period of time. Management in such a case is management of the disease in such a case is critical. So we'll come to learning about AIDS as in the future slides in as we proceed with this chapter. But for now, we know that AIDS is spread by sexual contact with an infected person. Also, there are other sexually transmitted diseases like syphilis, then you have gonorrhea. Okay, and the spread can is just not via the sexual contact, it can also be via infected needles from mother to baby and so forth. Coming to AIDS, important thing in AIDS is to remember how we can get AIDS and which are the ways we can't get AIDS. As in, like, there are certain things told to us we can get AIDS via this. Okay, and those are called as myths. Means something that is false, something that is not true. Okay, so similarly, in this few slides, we'll see how what causes AIDS, what does not cause AIDS, how do we prevent AIDS, and what is the line of treatment, briefly, for this disease. It's actually AIDS is an a pandemic, and AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Acquired because we get it from an infected person. Immunodeficiency refers to the fact that our immune system becomes compromised. Okay, our defense system collapses, and that is the reason why it's called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Now you look at this chart over here, this infographic, it will tell you how can we get HIV. Remember, we don't get AIDS to begin with, we get HIV. It is the virus that we get. The virus causes a condition called as AIDS, okay, which leads to a collapse of our system, our defense system. So the first case is when we have sex without a condom. But it's important to note, it is just not sex without a condom. It is having sex with an infected person without using protection. Now the thing is, there is no way to know if the person has got AIDS. In fact, the person who has got AIDS may also not be aware that he or she has got AIDS. So that is why it is very, very important that if you do not know the person for a very long time, not to have sexual promiscuity or sexual contact with that person without using protection. And the main protection that one can see is that using a condom. Okay, so the use a condom when you have sex with someone whom you do not know, whose lifestyle you do not know, so who hasn't been sleeping around or having sex with different multiple partners. Okay, chances are that he or she may have acquired this virus and may transmit it to you as well during sexual contact or during sex. Okay, coming to the next part is passed from mother to baby. Now in this case there is no way the baby can avoid getting this thing. um, Not always is it seen that mother transmits the virus to the baby. But it has been noticed that the HIV, the virus that causes human immunodeficiency, is passed on to the baby via the mother who is already infected with this particular virus. The third case is that of sharing injecting um, equipment. Now this happens mainly with drug addicts, those who um, use syringes to inject drugs with inside them, who are drug abusers, okay, or drug addicts as we call them. Those are the people that can have, because the chances are that they may have um, shared needles with an infected person. Okay, so remember, when we inject needle, there is a certain amount of blood that is passed is let's say comes out when you inject a person, and depends on how well we injected, and little bit of virus onto that needle is more than enough, okay, to transmit uh, this virus and cause you AIDS in the long run. And the fourth part that we see is where we share contaminated blood transfusion. So most of these cases of blood transfusion are avoided now, because most of the hospitals, clinics are very careful in giving blood to an individual. We have blood banks as well, which make sure blood is first tested, as in the individual is tested, who the individual who is donating the blood, his or her blood is tested to check whether he or she suffers from HIV or other diseases. Only then the blood can be donated to somebody else, or for that matter stored in a blood bank. So blood transfusion refers to transfer of blood from one individual to another. Okay, and same thing happens with donation of organs. Okay, organ donation. Uh, the individual is checked whether that person has got HIV or not before the organ is transplanted or put into another individual. Okay, so AIDS is caused by a virus. It's a retrovirus called HIV. The meaning by retrovirus meaning that it will inject its RNA instead of DNA into the humans who have DNA. Okay, so DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, whereas RNA stands for ribose nucleic acid. But you don't have to go into details of this. Just know it's a retrovirus called as HIV, wherein it injects its RNA into which integrates with the human DNA over there. We have spoken about methods of transmission of this thing. These are the ways through which AIDS can be transferred. Now, how can you not get AIDS? Okay, now these are some of the ways which some may tell you that you can get AIDS, but it is actually false. You don't get AIDS by kissing a person who has got AIDS. Okay, because it is important to transfer the virus. The virus moves only via bloodstream. So in kissing, you could have an exchange of saliva, but the virus does not pass through your digestive system, so it gets killed. So through kissing, it has been found not possible. You, by hugging an infected person also, you don't get, or by sharing food, you can't get viruses via insect bites. So like if a mosquito bites, it's mosquitoes, they draw blood, they suck blood from uh, humans. So let's say a mosquito goes and bites a person who has got AIDS or this virus, and then goes and bites you. Will you get AIDS? No. The answer is no. it is not possible to get AIDS, because the virus does not survive within the mosquito. Next, what if you share the same toilet? Will you get this virus? Answer again is no. It has to be passed via the bloodstream only. Um, can you get viruses if you bathe, if you're having bath together, or let's say sharing the same water? Answer is no. By sneezing and coughing, once again, no, the viruses cannot be transferred. Neither can you get virus by sharing clothes, or if you touch somebody's sweat. Okay. Prevention of AIDS. Basically, you just need to prevent whatever causes AIDS. That is, avoid transfusion of infected blood, use disposable needles and syringes. So it is also important to make sure whenever you go to a salon, somebody cuts your hair or uses a razor, make sure they use a new razor and is not not using a used razor that has been used on some other person. Okay, so make sure that is not done. Avoid sexual contact with unknown people, very very important, or someone whom you do not know the history of. Avoid the same razor used in salons. Now we move on further to organ specific, tissue specific manifestations. So disease causing microbes enter the body via different means and go to different organs and tissues of our body. So microbes which enter through the nose are likely go to the lungs. Those which enter through the mouth are likely to stay in the gut, that means the intestinal area. Okay, and viruses which cause AIDS enter the body through sexual organs during sexual contacts and spread through the lymph to all parts of the body and damaging the immune system. And viruses which causes Japanese encephalitis, that is brain fever, enters the body through mosquito bite and goes and infects the brain. Here you can see how diseases are spread from infected person to a healthy person via touch of hands, certain, but this cannot be generalized for all infections. Sometimes you just shake hands with a person and you can get infected. Sometimes you cough, or you sneeze, or you even kiss the person, you get. Okay, then you have by a food or by water or by wearing clothes of an infected person also you can. And sometimes the transmission of disease happens through animals as well, whether it is mosquitoes, some insects, or even a rabid animal, that is a dog that is suffering from rabies. Air transmitted. Most of the diseases are air transmitted. That means whenever we sneeze and we cough, we happen to release a number of infectious organisms which are inhaled by a person nearby, and then that person gets infected. If you have a look over here, um, when we sneeze or we cough loudly, and if we don't uh, hold our hand close to our mouth to avoid transmission, see how far it can go. It can go up to 4 meters as well. Okay, and in some cases it is only 2 meters which falls close by. Okay, so this has been found in the case of this COVID-19 pandemic. So that is why we are usually asked to stay or keep a distance of 6 meters, because the virus can travel up to 4 to 5 meters. It has been found. So if you're 6 meters apart. The other thing that has been practiced widely globally during this pandemic is use of a mask. So when you use a mask, chances are when you cough and you breathe, cough and you sneeze, you will not be transmitting it to the other person, and also it protects the other person from receiving, because there is a shield, that is in a mask, preventing the virus from entering the nose or the mouth. So the virus particle is cannot pass through these masks. Now, principles on treatment of treatment. How do we treat infectious diseases that cause infection? Okay, there are two steps. Consist of two. They are to reduce the effects of the disease and to kill the microbe. So, first thing that we do is we look to reduce the impact of that particular microorganism that is causing the sickness. The next step, once you have contained the microorganism, that is prevented it from spreading further, the next step is to kill whatever microorganisms are there, to eliminate them from our system. Okay, so it's a two-pronged strategy that is utilized even in this COVID-19 pandemic. The first thing is done is to prevent the spread, and the general way to prevent the spread is to use sanitizers, to use masks. Okay, in this way we can to a great deal cut down the number of people who could be infected, or who an infected person can infect, that it can even include your household members as well. Okay, the next step is then to treat the person, that is to make sure we eliminate that thing from an infected person. And if an infected person is treated, then chances are that further infection will be stopped. So first, we do take medicines which prevent further buildup of infectious microorganism within our body. And important thing during an infection is to take sufficient rest, and also to be sufficiently hydrated as in you must have enough of fluids, and take vitamin C to make sure that you can fight off infection, because vitamin C boosts our immune system. That is why you may have heard people recommending this vitamin C to boost the immune system. The next step is, as I said, to kill the microbes, and this can be, in case of bacteria, it can be done using antibiotics, and in case of viruses, there are other drugs, protozoans also, there are other drugs to kill them and prevent any further infection. Continuing with principle, so there are two ways of preventing infections. There's a general way and a specific way. Okay, and a general way is where you take care of your hygiene. Make sure you wash your hands, you wear clean clothes, you maintain hygiene, like whenever you sneeze or you cough, you hold hand to your mouth. You maintain a good surrounding, make sure it is not full of garbage, litter, there's no water just lying around for mosquitoes to breed. Eat good nutritious food. Okay, and maintain good practices, that's all. And make sure you have a clean environment, not just in your house but in your surroundings as well. Okay, so this is certain things that are mentioned over here by the World Health Organization, that you can actually have a look at. You see, it says you must always wash your hands after coughing or sneezing. If you're looking after a sick, you should always wash your hands before and after eating as well. When you use toilet, or when hands are visibly dirty, if you are working in the garden or working at a profession which involves making your hand greasy or dirty, and if you handle animal waste as well. So, okay, moving further. Okay, so you have specific, these are the general ways of preventing. Specific ways involving will involve, like how we are now have developed vaccines for this coronavirus, is to develop vaccines for that particular disease or disorder, okay, that is actually kind of causing that particular sickness or disease. Vaccination is a very important part. We call it immunization, wherein we build up the immune system or make the immune system or the defense system of our body aware to a particular dangerous foreign body. Like for example, by vaccination, what we are doing, we are giving a vaccine to an individual for COVID-19, so that next time the COVID-19 nears our body, our defense system recognizes it and kills it straight away without causing any harm to our body. That is why when we are small, we are given a number of vaccines, okay, for a number of things, for polio, for tetanus, for measles, and so forth. Okay, this is a specific type of preventing disease. Okay, and the process of immunization can involve a number of things. Sometimes we just put a part of the microorganism, like just a protein coat that causes disease, without inserting the entire organism. Sometimes the entire organism is inserted but is weakened in such a way that it cannot cause the disease in us, but gives enough time for the immune system to recognize and kill that organism. Our defense system has the ability, once it recognizes the individual, to remember the next time it enters, to kill it, recognize that it is harmful and it is dangerous to our immune system. Okay, and yeah, so sometimes the organism is just killed, but everything else is kept intact and pushed into our body via vaccination, and that again helps our body to recognize, our defense system to recognize this organism or this pathogen, as we call it, the invading microorganism, to get hold of it and eliminate it from our body without causing any harm to us. Okay, so this is like the main fundamental rule that is followed in any vaccination program done for infants. However, for COVID-19, vaccination is being done right from the old people to the young people as well, because everybody has been infected by this COVID-19 virus. Communicable diseases. So, infectious diseases spread by agents are referred to as communicable diseases. Okay, so in this case, we see that different types of diseases that are caused airborne. It could be waterborne, sexual diseases, or animal-borne diseases. And the examples given over here are, you can see, airborne is pneumonia, common cold, tuberculosis; waterborne, cholera, hepatitis. Then you have sexual diseases like HIV, syphilis, and so forth. Also, apart from this, you have animal-borne diseases, which means like something like rabies, which can be caused by um, an infected or a rabid dog. Okay, and then you also have like malaria, which is caused by a mosquito biting you, transferring the plasmodium carried by the mosquito into you. So, and there's a list of communicable diseases over here that you see. Some will be familiar to you. Okay, and it shows you the mode of spread, like cholera is through food and water, typhoid through food and water, hepatitis causing jaundice, so it's also through food and water. You have influenza, flu caused by air, then tuberculosis caused by air, and you have malaria caused by a mosquito, and tetanus by bite wound exposed to dust or rusted item. It's not necessarily always bite wound, like if you get hurt by a metal object or a rusted object, chances are you could also get tetanus. We are given tetanus doses when we are small, but it is important as we grow up to take tetanus doses at least 6 months, because it When you take a dose, it gives you protection for at least 6 months. Those were the communicable diseases. Coming to the non-communicable disease before we wind up this chapter. A non-communicable disease is a disease that is not transmissible directly from one person to another. And some examples that are given over here are common examples that you may have experienced or at least known about them in your daily life, like cardiovascular problems, dealing with heart problems. If one person has got heart problems, the other person will not get it. Okay, it's not transmissible in any ways. Diabetes is another thing. Just by sharing a room with someone, sharing clothes with someone, you will not be able to get diabetes. Then other chronic respiratory diseases like asthma and so forth, or bronchitis, these diseases are not transmissible. You can't get asthma and bronchitis directly by from someone by if that person coughs or sneezes. And the other example that is given is cancer. Once again, cancer is not transmissible, and it's classified as a non-communicable diseases. The other examples that you see over here are certain chronic kidney disease. You have osteoarthritis, that means you have problems in your legs, bone problems, osteoporosis, similar things, old age problems, old age related problems, Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or even cataract. These are not transmitted from one individual to another. These are problems related to lifestyle or old age related problems. Okay, so with this we complete this chapter on why do we fall ill. Now we know very well why do we fall ill. Most of the time we fall ill because of not maintaining a good hygiene or not practicing good health practices. Okay, so it is very important that we maintain a good hygiene, eat a balanced diet, nutritious food, maintain a good hygiene not only within our house but around the house surroundings. Make sure we have good healthy practices, not just socially but also in terms of how we conduct ourselves in our day-to-day life. Okay, so and we need to be aware of how we can catch diseases from different people. So one needs to be aware and not be ignorant of such facts. Okay, so very important considering in the situation that is prevailing today, wherein we are catching the COVID-19 vaccine, COVID-19 sorry pandemic. It is very important. It's a virus that causes this COVID-19 coronavirus, and it is very important to wear masks when we are in public, and also to regularly or frequently sanitize our hands. Sanitization does not just mean washing our hands with using a sanitizer, but you could even wash your hands thoroughly with soap every time you go outside and you enter the house. There's no need for you to have a shower every time you go outside, but at least wear a mask if you're going outside, and maintain distance with individuals whom you are not aware, and keep the mask on at all times for your safety and safety of others too. Okay, so with this we end this chapter on why do we fall ill, chapter 13 from the NCERT book of class 9. If you like watching this video and the other videos, hit the like button, share it with your friends and classmates. Please subscribe to the channel and do not forget to click on the bell icon to receive updates. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.